Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. Oh, hey friends. I was just practicing a monologue from Shakespeare's play, Julius Caesar. Now, Shakespeare wrote this play around 1599, but we all know that the real Julius Caesar lived in ancient Rome. And speaking of ancient Rome, that's where we're starting our travels today on our international tour of theater history. Today, we'll be learning all about theater from the ancient Roman Empire to the Middle Ages, including a brief background with the struggles of Roman theater against the other spectacles of the time, and the struggles of medieval theater against religious criticism. Roman playwrights and practitioners such as tragedy writer Seneca and comedy writers Plautus and Terence, as well as actors, and medieval playwrights and plays including famous female nun playwrights and common play genres. So, let's jump in our chariots and get started! Let's go! Before the show starts, let's review our program for the day, starting with a brief background of theater struggles through the Roman and medieval ages. Now, there are a lot of years between ancient Rome, which was founded in 625 BCE, through the Middle Ages, around the 14th century CE. So, it would be natural to expect that there would be a lot of theater during that long stretch of time. However, theater faced several significant struggles during both eras. Let's start in the ancient Roman Empire. Hello, fellow Roman citizens. We are in the era of togas and aqueducts. Our army is internationally famous, and our empire is expanding every single day. Although we have invented things like roads, the Julian calendar, and newspapers, much of our art is inspired by or directly stolen from the Greeks. Many of our shows are imitations or loose translations of Greek plays. We even perform in their clothing. You would think that our Roman theater would be just as successful as the Greeks, right? Hey, where is everyone? Roman theater struggled because of the appetites of the population. Romans preferred entertainment and performance over the highbrow tragedy and drama of the Greeks. The Romans wanted excitement, blood, guts, gore, and more. Theater had to compete with many other forms of spectacle. Spectacles were large shows designed to entertain Roman societies. They included events such as chariot races, gladiator fights, and staged animal hunts. They even flooded theaters to stage naval battles. The Roman authorities used spectacle to distract the public from economic and political issues. That might sound a little familiar. In Greece, theater had close ties to religious festivals. Because Roman festivals were typically secular, theater lost its close ties with religion. Therefore, there was less of an obligation to attend and enjoy these types of festivals. Roman theater was dependent on public taste. If the people did not like the play, the manager of the festival had to return part of the money to the public funds. Theater tried to adapt to the appetites of the people. Actors wore built-up shoes called cothurni and bigger masks. Long processions of animals, elaborate costumes, and impressive effects were added to the plays. However, none of this was enough to stop the decline of theater. And speaking of decline, that's exactly what also happened to the Roman Empire. After the fall of Rome in 476 CE, the theater scene declined significantly. In the 6th century, Emperor Justinian of the Byzantine Empire permanently closed all theaters. The early Christian church considered theater to be a threat to Christianity. Acting was thought to be sinful, and actors were officially excommunicated. Well, I guess that means I'm out of a job. After the Byzantine Empire, theater continued to fall during the early Middle Ages, also known as the Dark Ages. While minstrels and other entertainers traveled throughout the land searching for financial support, theatrical plays or shows were not widely produced. However, as time went by, church leaders realized that instead of banning theaters, they could regulate them for their purposes. Dramatization could help explain religion to a largely illiterate population. During the 12th century, religious plays began to be performed outside of the church. Traveling plays introduced Europe to theater. In the 13th century, secular dramas began emerging. The next century popularized mummers' plays, folk plays performed by amateur troupes of actors. During the 15th and 16th centuries, small companies of professional actors were sponsored and maintained by others, such as King Henry VII of England. As the Middle Ages declined, the Renaissance flourished and theater began to rise again. But before we get into the Renaissance, let's rewind a little back to Roman playwrights and practitioners. Who are these handsome rascals? Well, the most famous Roman playwrights were comedy writers Plautus and Terence and drama writer Seneca the Younger. From 205 to 184 BCE, Plautus adapted most of his comedies from the Greeks, reworking their text to appeal to Roman audiences. Plautus wrote about 130 plays, 20 of which still exist to this day. He is one of the most prolific ancient playwrights. Similar to Plautus, from 170 to 160 BCE, Terence also adapted Greek plays. However, his style of writing was in a more simple conversational tone of Latin. He wrote 6 comedies which still exist to this day. Although Terence used plot and characterization better than Plautus, his direct style was less visually humorous. However, even though his plays weren't popular in his day, Terence's works gained recognition during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Seneca the Younger, commonly called Seneca, was also influential in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Unlike Terence and Plautus, Seneca, who lived from 4 BCE to 65 CE, wrote drama. He is credited with 10 plays, although he may have only written 8 of them. Although Greek influence can be seen in Seneca's plays, his works were not direct adaptations. Some scholars believe that Seneca's works were not staged and were actually recited at elite gatherings of fancy, rich, mancy people. Pickies out. Ironically, people who probably would not have been invited in those elite gatherings were actors. Unlike in Greece, where actors were highly respected professionals, Roman actors had very low social status. However, if slaves became actors and performed well, they could gain their freedom. There were a few actors who were able to rise above and achieve notoriety. There was even a guild for female stage performers. And speaking of women in the theater, let's move on to medieval playwrights and plays. Now, the medieval time period, also known as the Middle Ages, was not always kind to women. However, some like Roswitha and Hildegard von Bingen were able to find freedom and power through their writing. Roswitha, who lived from 935 to 1002 CE, was a well-educated nun, and is considered to be the first female historian, first German female poet, and the first playwright since the fall of the Roman Empire. She wrote 6 short dramas inspired by the works of Roman playwright Terence. However, Roswitha thought that Terence portrayed women as weak, emotional, and immoral. Therefore, she wrote her female characters as chaste and virtuous, courageously choosing their martyrdoms. Because she was a nun, a key theme in Roswitha's plays was religion. In her writing, she demonstrated that religion could empower women of that time with independence and freedom. Similarly, Hildegard von Bingen, who lived from 1098 to 1179 CE, was a nun and a prolific writer during the Middle Ages. She was elected Mother Superior of her convent and is now considered to be the founder of scientific natural history in Germany. Fun fact, in 2012, the Catholic Church named Hildegard a saint and a doctor of the church. Not only did Hildegard write plays and poetry, she also wrote music. Her most famous play is the Ordo Virtutum, a sacred musical drama. It was composed around 1151 and it is a morality play. You might be wondering, what is a morality play? Good question. Well, during the Middle Ages, plays were typically categorized as either morality plays, mystery plays, or miracle plays. Morality plays were a genre of drama that included concepts as characters such as beauty and strength, as well as angels and demons. Usually there is a hero who represents the regular everyday person struggling to choose between good and evil. Mystery plays reenacted biblical stories as tableaus, posed still scenes with actors, accompanied by songs. They were often performed in cycles which could last for days. Can you imagine watching a show for several days? Hey, that's a theater kid's dream. Ah, awesome! Miracle plays were similar to mystery plays, except they specifically reenacted miracles by saints in the lives of ordinary people rather than Bible stories. To learn more about other types of medieval drama and examples of plays, check out the PDF. Many morality, mystery, and miracle plays were staged using pageant wagons, platforms mounted on wheels to move the scenery from one location to another. Pageant wagons were basically movable stages. Usually, multiple wagons would travel together. Pageant wagons could travel around from city to country locations, and actors could be selected from the local population. And speaking of traveling, it's time for us to move on from the Middle Ages. Just a quick reminder, today we learned a brief background of theater struggles through the Roman and medieval ages, Roman playwrights and practitioners, and medieval playwrights and plays. Before we circle up our pageant wagons and head out of town, don't forget to complete the practice questions and PDF for this lesson to prepare for our next trip, where we're going to learn all about Intro to Eastern Theater. Until then, remember, in theater, like in life, the limit is your imagination. Hey!